These days, we can't rely on Republican politicians for much, but we can always depend on them to use fear to get what they want. Now look, fear can be a logical response, or it can be irrational. Logical fear is based on reason, and reason depends on evidence. But when it comes to Republicans, they use fear and nothing else. No evidence, no logic, no data, no reason. They paint a picture that is in complete opposition to reality, cherry-picking stories and statistics that they like, ignoring the context and bigger picture, and then attempting to solve problems by using solutions that actual experts say would only make things worse. And the craziest part is they love to talk about how tough they are. They call liberals snowflakes and say young people are weak, soft, and need safe spaces. But meanwhile, they don't feel safe without semi-automatic weapons. They think that 97% of the world's climate experts are part of some giant conspiracy to get people to do terrifying things, like use renewable energy sources. They talk like every immigrant is a murderous gang member. They say they're under attack when a gay person tries to buy baked goods at a place that sells baked goods. They aren't comfortable unless every person in this country is forced to live under their personal religious views. They act like helping people access healthcare that they can afford is some sort of communist takeover. They pretend like crime is rampant and every day is just a scene out of The Purge. They think it's necessary to split up families and deport people for not having enough paperwork. And they cry about political correctness, but they can't even work up the nerve to call the president's idea of governing what it actually is: authoritarian. But do you know what's actually scary? In some states, it's easier to get a gun than a driver's license. Yeah, it's a bit scarier to live in a world where a person with a history of domestic abuse can drive to another state and buy a gun in under an hour than it is to live in a world where you can't have another toy for your weekend gun hobby. In 2016 and 2017, LGBTQ people faced a major increase in violence and hate crimes. Up to one person killed every 6 days, even though violent crime rates for the overall population has been going down since 1992. So yeah, it's a whole lot scarier to be a gay person in this country than it is to be a homophobic business owner. Wealth inequality is so bad, the only time it's ever been worse was right before the Great Depression. And Republicans just gave rich people even bigger tax breaks. So yeah, it's a bit scarier to be poor on the brink of another depression than it is to be a rich person who's forced to pay taxes and not buy that sixth yacht. The World Health Organization anticipates a huge increase in heat stroke, tick-borne illnesses, and clean water shortages. And that's all thanks to climate change. And all the while, oil companies like ExxonMobil publicly cast doubt on climate science, even when their own research pointed to the same conclusions. So yeah, ignoring climate change is a little scarier than worrying about a powerful oil company being forced to pay taxes and all the pollution it creates. The Republicans may pride themselves on their machismo, but they're such crybaby cowards that they need to turn their personal phobias into these giant, terrible battles for good and evil. And then they mock other people whose lives are truly endangered by their misguided policies and their general lack of concern. Republicans in power sit in relative comfort and security while voting to raise their own salaries, and they spread irrational fears to pit working people against each other. Powerful Republicans' whole goal is to create an emotional response that overrides critical thinking, so that they can do what they always do: scare us working people into voting against our own interests. Then they pass a big tax cut for themselves and their donors. Republican policies are the policies of the weak and fearful. My name's Danny Gomez. Thanks for watching Prompt. To watch more videos, please click here and don't forget to subscribe to Prompt News.
Why is it that no matter how ludicrous the things Trump says get, it doesn't have any bearing on how his supporters feel about it? Like how he referred to white supremacists as fine people after the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally last year. But let's be honest, if grab him by the pussy didn't dissuade voters, can we really expect them to be critical of anything Trump says? And let's not forget the whole Mexico is bringing their worst people, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. Hey Trump, that's racist. We can't really be surprised though. Trump has always been racist. In a 1989 Time article, he used the slur Japs to refer to Japanese people. Classic Trump. And did you know that Trump publicly pitched a version of white people versus black people as a season of The Apprentice? Definitely racist. In a book by a former Trump hotel and casino president, Trump is quoted saying some truly horrendous things. Black guys counting my money. I hate it. The only people I want counting my money are the short guys wearing yarmulkes every day. I think the guy is lazy. And it's probably not his fault, because laziness is a trait in blacks. Excuse me? What about recently? Referring to Haiti and African nations as shithole countries? Sounds kind of racist. In 2016, Trump argued that a judge should recuse himself from overseeing a Trump University lawsuit because he was Mexican. Racist. In 2017, Trump reportedly said that Haitian immigrants all have AIDS and complained how Nigerian immigrants would never go back to their huts after seeing America. You guessed it, racist. The White House denies those last two things. Honestly, what do they have to lose in confirming he said it? It's not like anyone would care. Speaking of trying to expose Trump's bigotry, most recently, Trump has come under fire for his comments about a former staffer. He tweeted, "Good work by General Kelly for quickly firing that dog." If you don't know, this is about Omarosa Manigault Newman, an African-American woman. She's trying to expose Trump's corruption and says that Trump used the N-word during a taping of The Apprentice. Trump said he didn't, but Sarah Sanders couldn't say for sure that he didn't not say it. Here's the thing though, if a tape is revealed and we hear the N-word come out of our president's mouth, will it really change anything? Whether or not you believe Trump voters are racist themselves, they all decided that racism wasn't a deterrent in deciding who should run our country. To stay updated on all the craziness of this trash fire of a presidency, be sure to like and subscribe to Prompt.
Conservatives love to pretend that you're trying to steal their hard-earned money through welfare or healthcare or a decent living wage. But the reality is that Republican lawmakers are making most of that hard-earned money by stealing it from you. These are 5 ways Republicans are screwing you out of your money. Number 1, corporate tax cuts. The latest tax bill cut corporate taxes from 35% to 21%, which Republicans pretended would also benefit the average middle-class worker. Well, on December 22nd, 2017, Trump tweeted, "Big companies and corporations showering their workers with bonuses. This is a phenomenon that nobody even thought of, and now it is the rage. Merry Christmas." But of course, that's a straight-up lie. Economists and market experts agree that nearly all of the money these companies will save flows back to shareholders, investors, and top executives. As a response to the bill, numerous giant companies, from Home Depot to Bank of America, immediately put billions into share buybacks, which don't help the average employee at all. What's more, the money that the government used to get from these corporations creates a deficit in revenue, a deficit that is scheduled to be repaid by middle-class earners. See, the tax bill made corporate tax cuts permanent, but actually raises taxes on the middle class starting in 2025. Number 2, healthcare. This new tax bill also takes your money by making your healthcare way more expensive. The new bill basically removes the requirement that you have to have healthcare or pay a fine. This means that only people who are older or who regularly need care are going to be paying into that healthcare pool, meaning there's less money to go around. So everyone's healthcare costs will go up. Even with a doubled child tax credit, low and middle income families will end up paying more. The Congressional Budget Office found that by next year, Americans making less than $30,000 a year will be worse off under the new bill. And that threshold just gets bigger over time. By 2021, it comes for those making $40,000, and then for those earning less than $75,000 by 2027. The biggest single reason for the rise? Because these people will get less government aid for healthcare. And on top of that, 13 million Americans are projected to lose health insurance in the next decade. Number 3, wage stagnation. Since the early 1970s, hourly inflation-adjusted wages have risen by next to nothing, 0.2%. And the majority of that increase has gone to workers at the top of the food chain, executives, CEOs, and so on. In fact, for those making minimum wage or close to it, when adjusting for inflation, your real wage has actually gone down since the 1970s. In 2014, the Bipartisan Congressional Budget Office did a study that centered around raising the federal minimum wage to $10.10. Basically, they found that higher pay would increase families' income and raise nearly 1 million people out of poverty. 3 out of 4 Americans support a pay increase. And yet, Republicans in Congress have repeatedly argued against an increase. And Trump has made several conflicting statements on the issue. In July, Missouri Republicans lowered the minimum wage from $10 to $7.70. In March 2017, Iowa Republicans voted almost unanimously to block local minimum wage hikes. Money that rightly belongs to minimum wage workers is being siphoned away in favor of corporate owners. All thanks to Republicans in Congress. Number 4, unions. As workers get continually screwed by the government and their employers, the obvious solution is unionization. And yet, strong anti-union propaganda from Republicans has led to unions representing only 6.5% of private sector workers, while 81% of Democrats approve of unions, only 42% of Republicans do. Trump helped Republican lawmakers resurrect a bill that would, quote, reduce the sway of unions at workplaces, unquote. The sponsor of that bill, Phil Rowe, felt that having strong organized labor meant, quote, the rights of American workers are under attack, unquote. Richard Trumka, a major union union leader who initially allied with Trump, has straight up said that the White House is actively hurting working people. In short, unions help you keep more of your money and provide better working conditions and benefits. Of course, Republicans don't want that. Number 5, the pay gap. Last, but still barely past the tip of the iceberg, is the ever-present wage gap between men and women that Republicans are desperate to pretend doesn't exist. On average, women earn 80% of what men earn, and the disparity in pay is found across similar jobs, education levels, and even age. Furthermore, a 2016 survey by the Pew Research Center added race into that equation and found that black men only earn 73% as much as white men, while Hispanic men earn 69%. But it's even more grim for women of color, with black women earning 65% as much and Hispanic women earning only 58%. Republicans have responded to these statistical facts about American employment by claiming that it's actually motherhood that is the reason for the gap. Hint, it isn't. Or worse, in 2015, Trump tried to say that women were simply just not as skilled as men and we're not as competitive. And if you think that's bad, it's only gotten worse. In 2017, Trump revoked Obama's 2014 Fair Pay and Safe Workplaces order. Then in August, Trump halted data collection for an Obama-era program that would have mandated employers to disclose pay categories based on gender, race, and ethnicity to the government. Republicans are dead set on preventing women and people of color from earning as much as white men, which isn't all that surprising when you learn there are more Republican senators named John than there are female Republican senators. Let that sink in. And while you think about how crazy that is, you should also think about what you can do to stop Republicans from endlessly stealing your money and pretending it's really theirs. First and foremost, you can vote them out this November. Make sure you're registered to vote in your area by going to vote.gov, and if you see a candidate who you think can make a real difference, donate and tell your friends. Thanks for watching this episode of You're Getting. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more episodes just like this every week.